operations. Consequently, no one can take things freely from their neighbor. No one can do harm to his fellow man. No one should kill his fellow man. The hunters declare that everyone must watch over his fellow man. Everyone should venerate their ancestors, that everyone should educate their children, that everyone maintain and provide for the needs of their families. The hunters declare that each I forgot to put my glasses on, right? Let me put my glasses on. That each guard the country of their fathers through country or homeland. He must also understand, and especially men, that every nation, every land where men disappeared from the face of the earth became immediately nostalgic. The hunters declare, hunger is not a good thing. Slavery is no longer a good thing. There is no greater calamity than slavery in the present world. As long as we are in possession of the bow and quiver, hunger will no longer kill a person in Mandan. If by chance famine raged against us, war will never again destroy some village to take away slaves. From now on, no one can force a bit in the mouth of another human being to sell into slavery. A person will no longer beat, let alone put to death another because he is son of a slave. The hunters declare, the essence of slavery is extinguished this day. From one end to the other of Manding, raiding is banished and reckoned with this day in Manding. The torments born of these horrors have ended this day in Manding. What tribulation, what torment, especially when the oppressed have no other recourse. What decadence, this slavery. The slave has not shown any contribution in this world. The people of the past say, man, in that he is an individual made of bone and flesh, of marrows and nerves, nourishes himself with food and drink, but his soul, his mind lives on three things: to see what it wishes to see, to say what it wishes to say, and do what it wishes to do. If even one of these things is missing from the soul, it suffers and will surely waste away. Consequently, the hunters declare, from now on each person arranges his own affairs. Everyone is free to do what he wants in respect of the prohibitions. Such is the oath of the Mandan for the benefit of the ears of the entire world.
Thank you for imparting that knowledge. I got some questions about that when I come back to you. Many thanks. Attorney Shabbat, would you mind just defining sovereignty for us and speaking about how you've been able to help us secure that as a people through your work?
Thank you. Is it all right to stand up? I can see the brothers and sisters in the back. Black power.
Black power.
Black power.
Black power.
Giving honor to God, I bear witness that regardless to land, label, or language, that there is but one God. And I give thanks to all of the revolutionaries that have fought to free our people, from Marcus Mosiah Garvey through Malcolm X, through Kwame Nkrumah, Stephen Biko, Sister Queen Ya Asantewa, Queen Nzinga, beloved warrior, Sister Queen Winnie Mandela,
Black power.
Sister Queen Harriet Tubman. to stop right there with those black women, mainly black women tonight, because, and I want to answer your question direct, I come here heavy with African women on my mind, and I come here with black women on my mind. And I don't want to make a mockery of sovereignty. It's a serious subject matter. Thank you for just me being late and all of that. I'll just drop this and I'll participate. I'm honored to all of the panelists and everybody. Thank you for allowing me to be here. It's a serious time. It's not a playtime. Sovereignty means, according to our sources, sovereignty is the full right and power of a governing body of itself. The full right and power of a governing body over itself, without any interference from outside sources or bodies. That's what we're talking about here. Sovereignty means supreme power and authority. We're talking about global African sovereignty. And I'm assuming we're asking, do we have it and are we going to get it? Because this is a high standard. This is a tough standard. Sovereignty means, again, supreme power or authority. It means having supreme power and authority over your jurisdiction, meaning a specific landmass or area. It means having supremacy, dominion, power, and authority. Sovereignty also means the authority of a state to govern itself or to govern another state. Sovereignty is synonymous with autonomy, independence, self-government, self-rule, home rule. Sovereignty means complete and full independence, something that we've been fighting for now for over 500 years.
Yes, sir.
And something that we have yet to achieve, and we have some hell of obstacles on the way to achieving. But I'm happy to say that I'm here with the Pan-African Federalist Congress, brothers and sisters who believe like we believe. I bring you greetings from the new Black Panther Party. I bring you greetings from Black Lawyers for Justice. I bring you greetings from the Afro-Descendant Institute of Human Rights. I bring you greetings from a common front, a common effort, a common front that we're fighting on, an interim government that we're trying to build, and we're happy to be with other brothers, other black African sisters and brothers who are fighting for the same cause. We're on friendly governmental grounds here. I just want to say this as open up and define sovereignty. I want to say that we cannot have any sovereignty, and we will never have any sovereignty if we allow black or African women to come under attack, and we as men are unable to defend those black or African women.
Yes, sir.
Give up sovereignty. Thank you. And we don't even need to speak about it.
Yes, sir.
If we can allow African women, some of them in Congress right now,
Thank you.
under death threats, under threats of assassination,
Thank you.
as we have entered now one of the most dangerous periods in the last 20 to 30 years in this country.
Yes, sir.
We're talking about sovereignty here, and you got the Ku Klux Klan in the White House right down the street here in Washington, D.C.
Come on, boy.
And I'm really talking to you, African man, you, African warrior, me, us. I'm saying here, if we will allow our African women here who are on the front lines for us, if we will allow white racists, white Confederates, if we will allow the climate to just be whipped up against them and allow them to be shot down or assassinated in front of our face, then black men We don't deserve sovereignty.
No, sir.
We'll never get sovereignty. We'll never get independence unless we get tough enough, unless we get guts enough to fight for it and to defend it. Because it's the most worthy goal of any people on the planet Earth, but you got to earn it. You got to earn it. You got to be willing to fight for it, to die for it, to organize for it, and to be honest, in self-defense, you got to be ready to kill for it.
Yes, sir.
Power. Black power.
Black power. Black power.
So I'm kind of worried right now, to be honest. I'm just kind of worried right now. I'm happy because I'm amongst fellow organizers. I'm happy because I'm with the movement for Black Power and Dr. Amy Jenkins, and I'm with my allies, Brother John Cheeks from the American Recovery Act. I'm with one of the leaders and the Garveyites, a longtime ally, big brother of mine, Brother Singo Baye. I'm happy because I'm with some of the most progressive Africans anywhere out here. Sister Janai, Deborah, the Panthers, all of you, man, I love y'all. But I'm worried right now that we're not strong enough for the road ahead. I'm worried that the road ahead is getting darker, that it's getting rougher. God damn it, when we hear that a black woman in Congress who's fighting for us and fighting against Israel and under attack from the president, we should be bum rushing the goddamn Congress. There should be so many black men on the scene of that Congress that they have to shut down the damn Congress. Because there's so many mad black men that'll tear that goddamn place apart.
Yes, sir.
And everywhere I'm looking,
We with you, soldier.
find those kind of men. I don't see those kind of men. I don't hear from those men. Even though I'm begging those men to be men. So I open up, I'm sorry.
Don't apologize.
But I say that sovereignty has to be earned.
Yes, sir.
The respect of our women has to be earned. And no one on the planet is ever going to even negotiate sovereignty with us if we're unable to defend our women, children, and babies and to take a stand when it's time to take a stand. Good evening. Black Power.
Black power. Woo. Yes, sir.
Very great opening. I think that we're ready to get down to the nitty-gritty now in the questioning. So, my second question goes, well, first of all, let's get a breakdown of what we just heard just now, right? So we heard pretty much control of our resources, we heard self-defense, we heard African-centered education, and we heard pretty much self-governance. That's what I heard right here, right? So, Ms. Nubia, if you wouldn't mind, if you could just break down for us, because what you outlined that happened in Mali, what you just read sounded very powerful. And what was the date again? I thought I heard 12 something. 1232. Yeah, so we're talking about centuries ago. Would you mind just breaking down the nature of the negotiations, during that time? Like, how did different groups come together? What were the customs that were involved in that?
Yeah, well, it involved years of fighting between Sundiata and Samanguru. Even though Samanguru was the one who came to the people and said, look, we need to end this slave trade. And all the people were against him. They said, no, no way. Plus, they had like a caste system, occupational caste system. It's not like the caste system in India. And he was of the blacksmith caste, which was considered a lower caste. So they didn't want to accept him as a leader, as a king, which he was, right? But, so there was a fighting that went on for about 12 years. And in the meantime, when Sundiata's mother died, and they called Sundiata, when really what Samanguru did when they refused to go along with his plan, when you hear the language that he uses, it's really like this prophetic type of language. It's really beautiful. And, but they, like I said, they refused to accept him, so he goes to war against the people. And what he does, he ends up enslaving pretty much all of the Malian people, kills 9 of the kings and impales their head, right? All right, and has their head. And this guy, he was called, to check this out, it's very oxymoronic, he was called a sacred despot. sacred despot. So there was a spiritual reason behind everything that he did, even though he did some horrendous things. They said he made furniture out of people's skins, Hitler type stuff, right? But anyway, this is what leads the people to go and find Sundiata, who is living this life of kind of an epic hero. And he's living among the Samiki. So they go and they bring Sundiata back and they say, well, look, you have to try and defeat this man. And it had already been prophesied that he would be the emperor. But on his mother's deathbed, when his mother was dying, he said, they're going to ask you to be the emperor of Mali. But I don't want you to accept the position of the emperor unless you go along with some guru's objective of abolishing slavery and the slave trade. Right? So that's what he did. And that's why he conquered all of these surrounding nations like the Wolof, the Fulani, and others, and he brings them into the empire. He made them swear to this oath because he knew if he didn't stop it on the outskirts, it was just going to filter right back into Mali. So this is the reason for the formation of the Mali Empire. It was to end slavery and slave trade. And then for writers who talked about Mali at the time, it was very peaceful. You could go through, traders, people from all over the world could come through and not be harmed. It was a very peaceful state. This was also the development of the classical Malian music. This beautiful music we hear from Salih Keita and Baba Mal and all that comes from that time. Very much like the music that we involved here out of extreme pain and suffering. The spirituals and blues and jazz. And actually blues and jazz mainly comes from the Mali region. Now you asked about the organization of the empire. That's also very interesting because Sundiata had this brilliant idea of organizing the empire like a nation. So what he did, he took all of the different ethnic groups, restored their autonomy, and bound them together in something that they call, in the Mandinka language, they call it the Sanikou. In French, they call it the cousinage. And in English, they say just a bantering relationship, right? Just like you have a joking relationship with certain people in your family. You can't joke maybe with your father, maybe you can joke with your uncle. So you have all these ethnic groups who have a certain common historical ties going way back, back to Kemet, going back to Saudi Arabia, all these places where we have been, right? And they have this bantering relationship or the Sanikou, which ties them like a family. Right? So for example, if your name is Jalo, all right, and my name is Conte, and we don't know each other at all, but if I meet you, I can start talking about your mama. I can't do this with anybody else, right? But I can start cracking on you with Jonan on you, as we say, about your mama. That's the kind of relationship. But at the same time, if anything happens to this person, if their life is threatened, if somebody steals from them, anything, then they are bound to support them and protect them. Each other. That's the kind of relationship. So he structures the Mali Empire with this very tight bonds, these Sanakous that all these people have. And that's why they were able to live in peace for so long. They didn't have that same tie with the Tuareg, okay, who were in the north and who were the ones who were causing a lot of the problems. Even though they tried to kind of contrive a Sanakou with them later on, but it didn't come at the time when the Mali Empire was formed. Also, it was a socialist government. I have to say that. Because I'm going to tell you, ancient Kemet, ancient China, and they went back and forth, kind of between capitalism and socialism. You see this going back and forth with a lot of these nations, but the most stable, long-standing nations and empires in the world were socialists. So it was a situation where everybody was given land, all right? It wasn't freeholding rights like you have in the European countries. But
got a question for you.
Okay.
So like when you say socialism, at that point, was it socialism by another name, or was it more like so?
Of course, by another name, because they're speaking Manding language and we speak English. But in other words, it's similar to socialism, or if you want to call it communalism. All right. But it was based on a system of economic sharing of wealth and distributing, for example, land. Land was given to people not as ownership that they could pass on to generation, but it was given for them to farm and to work. Tools were also given to the people, all right, so they could work the land. And it was incumbent on every able-bodied person to work. And the idea behind that was to mitigate against the need to go capture somebody else and kidnap somebody and make them work for you. All right.
Definitely. I got one last question, and then I want to pivot to Ward 8 because there's been Ward 8 in the news recently, you know, with the unfortunate murder of a young brother down there, and I just want to talk about how economics plays a part in us just killing one another. But my question for you is spirituality, Miss Nubia. So earlier, you know, you mentioned just, you know, the killings, understandably done in the, you know, spirit, well, with the spiritual despot, pretty much, you know. So like, can you just speak about the significance of spiritual knowledge and just spiritual knowledge itself in general, you know, in forming, you know, nations and being sovereign? Like, how important is it for us to be tapped into that higher power?
Yes, I think it's very, very important. And we're talking about the time period in which the worldview or the cosmogony of African people is very, very different from the worldview that even we have today in the 20th century. Even our people in the 19th, 18th, and 19th century had a very different worldview and cosmogony. And so you had people, what we may call the metaphysical systems. People who knew how to control the material world. There were people, even here in the United States, who were like that. Like I said, in the 19th century, probably in the early 20th. So it's all of these stories that you hear about Sundiata. Sundiata and some of them were masters, thaumaturges, or mystics. Right? So in the epic, for example, you'll see them transmigrating. Say moving from one place to another, say moving 20 miles away in a matter of seconds, right? Because they were able to do this. Or they could appear and disappear, right? They had all kinds of healing powers, you know. And then Sundiata's mother was also, again, this master mystic. So this is why I think a lot of our scholars, a lot of our modern scholars in Africa and in that diaspora have a problem reading and understanding and believing African culture, because the spiritual entities as well are very real. They're just as concrete. A jinn, Orisha, Abasun, an angel, they're just as real as people. And they're also, you know, integrated into the historical narratives. Just to give you an example of what I'm talking about. For example, when the Moroccan army came to conquer Timbuktu, the sheikhs in Timbuktu were able to do certain dhikrs. All right, they were able to say certain things in which the whole city of Timbuktu vanished. Now, who is going to believe something like that? Who that is educated at Howard or Harvard or UC Berkeley or anywhere with a PhD is going to believe something like that? Or even if they believe it, they can't say anything about it. Right? You see what I'm saying? But we tend not to read it because you hear about this kind of thing all the time in oral texts and written texts. These are the kind of things you read like in Tariq al-Fatash and Tariq al-Sudan, you know, texts like that, where you have a jinn that comes and starts telling, asking Muhammad Touré about all of the different ethnic groups. And that's another thing, that ethnicities, the genealogies, the family trees are tied to the history. They're not separate, they're just as important. And it's very important so we know who we are. And that's another thing that throws people off. Because we're coming from places where they didn't think we came from. Like most of us would go back, all of us go back to the Nile Valley civilizations. But then there's several branches that went into the Middle East and Saudi Arabia and even India, where there were mass migrations back from there. So you hear people talking about all of their migration patterns in the traditional context, and they don't believe it. And they say, even Africans coming from these ethnic groups say, well, we're just saying that to make ourselves feel important, because they believe the other narrative. They believe this Western narrative. So we really have a lot of work to do to extricate ourselves from this, the worldview that we have, which is still primarily a Western one.
Are y'all listening to this? Again, thank you. Are y'all listening to this, man? Like, she dropped, like, let's give Mama Nubia a hand, man. So, if you're hearing what I'm hearing, then you guys pretty much know that everything that we're talking about isn't compartmentalized, like in the Eurocentric sense. Everything mixes in with one another. So we're talking about spirituality, we're talking about self-governance, and in there we were talking about economic systems, whole communalism, socialism, dynamic. I want to transition to my brother here, Brother Mustafa, just to speak about his work in the Ward 8 community, primarily just about the current situation that's going on down there, as is going on in any other pocket of Washington, D.C., where black people are without resources and are impoverished, but just what's going on in Ward 8 and pretty much how economics is a part of that situation.
Thank you. Again, I really do appreciate being in this panel because it is a wealth of knowledge, and it's all connected. What we have to appreciate is that in this current state, our challenge is how do we redefine ourselves in ways that let us go into the future. Clearly, being in this country and being enslaved, from that point on, we had to work to be where we're at now and really reclaim ourselves. So we have an opportunity in 2019 with the communities that we still have left in Washington, that are predominantly African American, to control our resources in a way that we can define ourselves. We can change up the paradigm that's been in these communities for years, where we've been basically controlled and dominated in a way that we've been working for everybody else. I mean, if you understand Ward 8, Barry Farms, the whole creation of community of former slaves that built Barry Farms at nighttime because they worked for the slave owners and people in government. So the only time they can build their community is at nighttime with candlelight. I mean, that's the history that we have right now, coming from. So in 2019, they want to claim this landmass. Gentrification is real, and all you have to do is look down the street at Shore to know that it's very real, and it has some real dynamics to it. And it's coming into Ward 8. And for African Americans who've been here for generations, for us now to be facing the possibility of being eliminated in this environment is very real. I mean, they have an agenda that is designed just for that. But at the same time, we have an opportunity, again, if we come together in the spirit of our ancestors to protect our community, it's nation building in the true sense of the word. Very similar to what we're talking about in Africa, right? 44 miles from here, on the other side of the river, we're at the beginning stage of nation building. And that part of that nation building is for us to come together collectively, get rid of all the egos, and begin to define ourselves in ways that our children, our grandchildren, can continue to live in this environment. Because if we don't do that, their game plan is to eliminate all of us. Yeah, and so this is what's happening. So there's a concept called community economic development that evolved out of the anti-poverty movement 60 years ago. And it was appreciated that if you're going to deal with poverty, that you had to change the whole community. That poverty wasn't isolated to individuals. And poverty is a man-made reality. Poverty is the outline of capitalism, And so to address poverty, and right now in Ward 8 we have the largest amount of poverty. There's been a study done by the health department and comparing Ward 8 to Ward 3. And it's like two different worlds. We might as well be in an undeveloped country. I mean, we're no different from any other undeveloped African country or Asian country in the world. Right next door, you have extreme wealth. And it's a structural issue. It's not man-made. I mean, it's not something that you're born in. It's a structure. So we can reverse that. We have the education, the training, the skill sets that we work for them to utilize to do for our own community. And that's what nation building is. It's taking our skill sets that we've mastered, and instead of being paid to help their systems, is developing our own systems. So right now, working with the councilmen and other community representatives, is recognition that our back's against the wall. That if we don't do something in the next couple of years, the dynamics of gentrification is just going to take over. The city government is projecting in the next 10 years over $10 billion of private investment is coming in Ward 8. $10 billion, that's more than nation see. So the question is, how much of that $10 billion can we capture? In our present form, we can't capture any of it, because 95% of our efforts in Ward 8 is from a nonprofit perspective, which means we don't build wealth. We're doing things that other people get wealthy from, but we don't build wealth. So we have to do a significant paradigm shift and a cultural shift to become more entrepreneurial in thinking and more focused around ownership. Because the landmass that we're living in now, that we represent 95% of the population in it, until that changes, is our land. So we cannot let anybody just walk in and take our land. Because if they do, then they deserve it. You know? And so that's where we're at right now. You know? And if we're going to do it for anything, do it for our children.
Right.
Why should our children be displaced from an environment that we've been in for generations? So because other people want to, you know, improve the quality of their life.
Good teaching.
You know? So community economic development is very similar to what the principles that Sam talked about, the 8 principles. It really talks about how do you reposition your community from the bottom up, not from the top down. You know, and this is the opportunity we have. And there's very few models in this country of a community building a bottom-up strategy. They don't want us to have that bottom-up strategy. So what happens in most planning process in communities? The city government or private investors come in and they will work with the community from a top-down perspective, give you your priorities, tell you this is where we want to go, and this is your future. So the opportunity we have in Ward 8 right now is to create a bottom-up process which we define our direction, we define our priorities, and anybody who wants to come in the community, either you add value to those agendas or you have no relevance. And so we have to define that, because what's happening now and what happens traditionally is the city government wants gentrification because it's good for taxes. Private investment wants development because they make profit. The community wants development because it improves the quality of life. It helps you develop livable wage jobs. It helps you have affordable housing. It helps you have health care that saves you instead of killing you. You know, these are the things that are what the community wants. But unless we develop our strategies around those issues, then the city government has their plan, developers have their plan, and if we come to the table with no plan, their plan will be the one that works out. And so we need to become planning orientated, future orientated. You know, there's a saying in the field of planning that either you plan or you're planned upon. There's no middle ground. Either you have a plan, you come to the table to define where you want to go, or somebody has a plan and they're going to define you where you want to go. It's true individually and it's true collectively. So we're at a turning point in Ward 8, and everything is local. You know, we have people in our community that are not conscious enough to know the link between us and the rest of the globe. They wake up every day, everything that's around them, they're blocked. Some of them have never been out their block. So in their mind, the universe is their community. So if we're going to deal with them, we have to impact their community. We have to change their community in ways that they can see that there's potential, there's future, and there's something positive out here. As long as we allow our community to look like what it is and being controlled outside the community, then our children don't have any future at all. So community economic development gives us an opportunity to reshape our community, and we control it. There's nothing that stops us right now in Ward 8 or Ward 7 to redefining ourselves. And this is the opportunity we have right now.
All right, strong. Let me see if I can pick up here on what Brother Mustafa Abdul Salam. He's a refreshing voice here. Let's give him a hand. Lord, he has a refreshing voice here. Habia? Nubia. Awesome. Great, I'm sorry. Awesome. Bless you too. Ajay. Now shit, they spell it. I'm sorry. All right. I want to try to see if I can move us some steps forward, because I'm feeling Brother Mustafa. Because, and I want to say I come with some authority. I speak with the authority of some other groups here, so that things that I may propose here, I can say that they represent a consensus. They represent a body of leaders, because I believe in the principles that Malcolm X espoused, that we must have a united black front. Most of my career, since I began at Unity Nation, right across the street at Howard University in 1988, it has been about the work of building a united front, having the kind of environment where leaders can get together and solve problems. I believe I'm in that kind of environment tonight. So I can say that I do speak on behalf of the leader here of the local movement for Black Power. That's Dr. Amy Jenkins. Please stand, because this is let's give her a hand. I want to tell you something in a minute, because movement for Black Power has been all in the trenches for gentrification, against gentrification, and we have been frustrated. That wing of our movement has met some frustration, and perhaps we can ease the frustration, because time is running out. Time is running out. I have Imam Akbar here. He's the National Chief of Staff of the New Black Panther Party. He represents 25 cities here in America and abroad under the leadership of his chairman, Hashim Nzinga, who was my successor as the chairman of the Panther Party. I held it for 13 years, and currently Chairman Nzinga is leading it, and here's the number 2 man. He's all over the country, stand on his feet. So whatever I say, all praise is due to the Lord. He's a great man. He's a great man. I can say that whatever I would offer here, I would have that authority, and I also speak here on behalf of Black Lawyers for Justice, and I represent another important entity here called the Afro-Descendant Institute of Human Rights, which is represented by Dr. Mustafa Al-Ansari, and he is working in the United Nations and other international bodies on these very claims of sovereignty and these very same objectives of territorial independence and what's called decolonization, which it's another subject, but I represent them also. So I represent a body here. I want to say that I'm not just speaking here, but I represent a coalition of groups, and I like this because I'm able to sit here and perhaps open up an environment of negotiation with other leaders so that we can form what? Try to move towards some kind of common front, or more formally, an interim government. What the Honorable Imari Obadeli taught us, a provisional government for the Republic of New Africa, and to try to move this forward. So the question we want to ask here is, now that we have a wealth of knowledge that you're dropping on us and waking me up again, what can we do? Who is going to do it? How are we going to do it, and when are we going to do it? Yes. What can we do together? Who can do it together? How are we going to do it together, and when are we going to do it together? I hope that gets answered or addressed as we move towards tonight, because I think we can make some progress. And I want to say something here just on gentrification. You know, this would be a great issue for us to take a stand and make progress on. This would be a great subject matter to show that global African solidarity, that we could at least have some local African solidarity and stop a problem that's directly affecting our people. And if we could, we would gain a lot of traction and respect in our movement. Right. Just a sign of the potential we have, and I'll give it back to our brother Sam, right? Yeah, a sign, because I like for the discussion to move. You know, I'm known for being long-winded, and I want to be short because I'm trying to work with my sisters and brothers, because I feel it's a critical time. It's a critical time, you know. Let me just so that you know that when I open up, I'm not just talking. I'm trying to raise up an army of men to go down here and defend Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, okay?
Yes,
that's
sir.
what I'm working on right now, every day, every night. Am I lying, Akbar?
That's true, brother.
I'm on Akbar every day. I'm on the line. Where are the men? We need a men so we can go down here and run some security and run some shifts down here. And if we have to go raise some money, then get the groups and the men together and put some men down here, because we cannot trust the United States government to defend our leadership. The United States government killed our leadership. Now here on gentrification, what's the come on, what's the condominium that went up that we put sanctions on about a year ago? Huh?
Okay, those are
Bozzuto. On the corner of Martin Luther King and what?
And
W.
And
Right. No, not
and
good
Small
about road.
W.
It's up.
It's W.
No, it's one up from W. It's 2 blocks up from Reverend Willie Wilson's church. Let me say something here, show you our power and show you the pitfalls and show and advise some possible solutions that we're willing to contribute to. We're willing to get to offer this in the fight. If anybody wants to fight, we're willing to go back in the fight. But we kind of got frustrated in the fight. Now we got out there against Bozzuto. Bozzuto was putting up a building.
Right.
And Bozzuto was not paying, was not hiring brothers and sisters in the community. And Bozzuto was otherwise ripping us off by building in the community and just driving gentrification anyway, regardless to what they're doing. They are a gentrification magnet. And so at that time, Councilman Trayon White was with us. He's a good brother. Brother Jahar is with us, and others. And the movement for Black Power, our forces, and the new Black Panther Party, we said we're going to stop all the construction on Bozzuto. We're going to stop the construction, and you're not going to build here until either the conditions are right or otherwise we're going to stop the construction, and we want to stop the construction everywhere, and we want a moratorium against all building over here in Ward 8, all moratorium on all building in the city. Otherwise, we're going to shut this down, we're going to shut another one down, and this is where we're getting started to make our stand. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Stand. Is that right? So what happened was we were effective. I mean, we went out there and we put our soldiers and our bodies and our troops on the line and the bullhorns on the line, and we shut down Bozzuto down for a whole week. I don't know if y'all saw that last year.
Yes, sir.
We shut it down for a whole week. I mean, literally, we stopped the construction. We stopped the trucks from coming. We stopped the lines from coming. It was a work day from 9 to 5, and by 1 o'clock, everybody had went home. Is that right? I mean, we put the heat on them like only we can put on them, right?
No question.
Okay, that's a good start. That's a strong start, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
But what happened was it got derailed. It got derailed, and old Bozzuto and that money came, and I'm going to say this because I'm trying not to just be putting people on blast, okay? Because I don't want to I'm trying to be productive, but I'm trying to make a point. We're looking for partners that will not sell out. We're looking for people that when we fight on the front lines and we put heat on the enemy, Brother Senghor and the white man, and put heat on it, that you don't go behind our backs and cut a deal with the head leadership to get a few crumbs.
That's right. Come on.
To solve your problem when we was there to solve the problem of everybody in the city.
Yes, sir. Come on.
So we're looking for partners that are not going to compromise and sell out. We're looking for partners that when we put our careers on the line, our bodies on the line, our lives on the line, that no one can break camp with us and go negotiate anything with anybody without the consent of not only us who fought for it, but the consent of the masses of our people. That's what we demand right now. And we will go back into battle.
That's right.
We will go, is that right?
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Because we don't have time to play. We don't have time to create to create the conditions for what we call a revolution or some level of revolution or change, and then we're undercut. You can't just use us. Can't use us and cut a deal. Okay, so the good part in it is that we have the power to stop gentrification in Washington. We have a power to create an opposition movement, and I see good signs. I saw him at Muriel Bowser's house, I think, the other night. I saw him fill the streets and the music for the go-go issue over here on 7th. I've seen good signs, and I want to let them know that we and I will offer all that we have in the fight, but we'll take the fight to the ultimate. But we don't want to be betrayed, and we don't want to be used. That's number one. We are proposing, and we're open to discussion. Our members here, our leadership, we're open to sit down to discuss what we believe will work in Washington, D.C., which is a People's Development Corporation. A People's Development Corporation. I well understand the argument that as individuals we need to own property and we need to own real estate. That is a good message, and that's what any good Garveyite would do. That's what any good disciple of Booker T. Washington would do right now. They would recognize and should have long ago recognized, and I'm blessed to have slightly recognized the value of owning and maintaining property in the District of Columbia, cleaning it up, and doing good business in the District of Columbia. I can say that I have some useful land in several areas in Washington, D.C. under my corporation or personal control, and that I can employ black people. I'm doing some good against gentrification. I'm doing some good. But you know what? It's like trying to stop the flood of a dam with your thumb. It's what good? I mean, that's nice, but that's not helping the masses. We are proposing a People's Development Corporation so that, in the spirit of Mr. Garvey, that the development in the District of Columbia on principle be in the hands of the masses of our people. That the people have an investment opportunity in all real estate development projects in this city. That it should not be going to Basuto. It should not be going to any individual developer, but it should be going to a People's Development Corporation. And the people, our people, have stock in that corporation, a say-so on these $10 million and $50 million and $100 million projects, and they should be going to us. And the benefits from the investment should be going to us. And the decisions about how they affect the community should be commanded by us. And you say, and I'm not talking a pipe dream. How many of you are familiar with the Tulsa Real Estate Development Fund and efforts? How many are familiar with that? Okay, so what I'm saying is in effect right now in Tulsa, Oklahoma, they are collectively buying real estate. They are collectively owning these real estate projects. At Basuto, the man, what he said, he got the land for how much it was? It was $100? It was some kind of matching fund. He got millions from the city by putting up a small amount. Why should that go to one white capitalist cracker?
Come on.
When it should be going to the brothers and sisters who live here and suffer here. And that's what we want to talk about. These are one of the ideas. So I leave here just be talking about what we can do, who we can do, just on that issue. These are some of the things we can do. We can shut down, and we're willing to team up so we can build up. That's what we want to talk about, negotiate, spend time on. You know, we need a united front. And that's for anything else that would be on this agenda. We want a united front and to negotiate now with leaders about gentrification and what we can do. We want a united front now. We want to sit down for negotiation on reparations with leaders and what we intend to plan and do. We want a united front on economics, a united front on military security, and we have the time and the intent right now to sit down and to negotiate and set a schedule and move the ball because time is moving fast and we don't have time to waste.
Yes, good to
I appreciate you saying that, and you dropped a lot of good points. You know, I think, you know, just speaking about what happened last year and just the need for organization, one thing that came to mind, and I want Najee to talk about this because, you know, she's the youngest on the panel, And I brought her up here for a reason, you know, because often missing in the conversation is just the intergenerational piece. And out of the 8 goals that I outlined, this is something that is near and dear to my heart. You know, just given the fact that all the resources that we have at our disposal, oftentimes they get lost over and over again intergenerationally. And that is apparent, no, not even apparently, that is by design, just given our experiences in this country and globally. You know, while the others have been able, through the exploitation of us, have been able to pass down their generational wealth or whatever, we've always had to start over and over. So part of my rationale in bringing Najee up was to, since she is the youngest, to speak about that education piece. She has done pivotal work in just building something, you know, for our young people and giving them the means to first learn about their African culture, and second, gain the tools and skills that they need to use their culture to the benefit of our people. So, you know, I'm going to open up the floor to you, sister. If you can just speak about D-School in D.C. and speak about, you know, what you have been doing through that realm for the last few years or so.
Can anybody hear in the back?
Can we hear back? There we go. Thank you everybody for coming, and I want to say thank you to my ancestors for having me up here with powerful men and queen that has a wealth of knowledge. Thank you. D-School in DC is an education liberation movement for the district's youth. So wards 7 and 8, but everybody obviously needs to be liberated from the public school system.
Yes.
The work that I've been doing so far is book donations, curriculum donations, and we have a community garden as well, which is open. It's actually Oxen Run Park off of Mississippi. We have another garden as well. I'm sorry, I don't remember what your question was, or you just wanted me to explain.
No problem. So, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
So, yeah, I get long-winded at times when I ask my questions.
But basically what I wanted, you know, you're basically explaining what you're doing right now, but if you could just speak about the importance of education, because everything that we're talking about right now, consolidating resources, organizing as people, creating like an economic plan, you know, it pretty much goes back, and even relying on the examples of our ancestors, all that goes back to education, because how can we do that if we don't know ourselves, and if we're not really learning Afrocentrically, you know? If you could just speak to the importance of that for our people in Ward 7 and 8, and just anywhere else in the city African people are.
Right, so our children are under attack, literally, and I don't know how to say it in any other way. Under attack every day at school, and under attack when they leave as well, because we have family issues that are intergenerational trauma from when we were brought here and from what happens to us every day here. A lot of times parents don't have the time to even listen to what happened at school today, because they're thinking about, you know, who was riding their back at work. Our children are under attack at school, and their destiny is being denied by a lot of times people that look just like them. I went to school in Prince George's County, and so I had mostly all black people, teachers, administrators, staff, everything. But you wouldn't think that, because we weren't being empowered most of the time. We have a couple of select teachers that know that it's important to empower, and they try and do as much as they can in the 45 minutes that they're allotted. But other than that, it's up for the student to be able to take that and hold on to that. What I propose with D-School in DC is we remove ourselves from that system, the public school system, and home educate our youth. Build our youth as warriors, as academics, as scientists that are going to be needed for the global crisis that we have going on, the climate. We need more people in agriculture, we need more skills, everything that we used to have that we've lost. We need our students to be in the presence of people like this that can teach us. I've learned more tonight from you than anybody will ever learn in DCPS about me. I'm learning about me when I'm listening to you. I'm learning about me when I'm listening to Sam. Our students are not learning about themselves when they're in school. And so the most critical points in their lives of development are being lost. And if anything, it's putting them in the opposite direction, the complete opposite direction. A lot of times people say that they don't want to homeschool because of that socialization piece. But honestly, the socialization that happens in school is what's creating the problems that we have on the street. 100%.
How do we go about, because some might say that it's a gradual process. They have a lot of excuses out the window from the jump about why not to homeschool. So how do you suggest we go about targeting these students, or just for the time being, like reaching them and their families in that transition from our reliance on the public school system to eventually being self-determined, holistic?
The first thing that we have to do as parents is trust ourselves to be able to raise our children. You were able to give birth women, and men you were able to aid in that process. You should have the sense of spirit in yourself to know that God gave you that child to raise them up in the right way. It's not for you to give that responsibility to the elementary school down the street or the daycare down the street. Not saying anything against it, because we're in a system where we have to work to survive. So I understand that there are things in place to keep us from doing that. But what I propose is answers to those problems, access to that. One of the main things that's going to be a problem not a problem, but I forget how you said it, but the excuse of why I can't homeschool, the excuse of a lot of our children are going to school and getting their only meal for the day at school. That's serious. If that's the only meal, how can I take my child out of school? What we need and what we used to have was a breakfast program. We more than enough have the economics to feed our children. It does not cost that much. It really does not. To feed our children healthy meals, because what they're getting in school is not healthy. So already we're doing better for them. Another thing that I propose, like I was saying, people have to go to work, so a lot of times you don't want to leave. You don't, depending on the age range and how much you trust your child or how mature they are, you don't want to leave them at home all day. What I would propose is youth facilitators, people that are young adults or achieving respect within the community, giving them the ability to watch over the young people in the community. If you have a 15-year-old that can watch over the 5 and the 10-year-old in their neighborhood and take them to the museum and take them to mama's house so that they can learn, that is going to do so much more for them than what they'll get 12 years at District of Columbia Public Schools.
Definitely. I want to open the floor up to the elders on the panel, because what I'm hearing from Najee right now is similar to how, from like what I recall, how our predecessors did it, growing up. We all had familiar networks, so, nobody shouldered the burden of responsibility on their own. And even, from hearing Mama Nubia talk, we've had systems like that where we were very communal. So, I just want to get an analysis. I'm pretty sure that we all know the answer to some degree, but I just want to hear from the elders on the, on the panel, like, at what point did we go wrong? Like, where did the breakdown happen? If it is so easy for us to be united as a community and to, share resources and to share responsibilities, at what point did all of that break down, and why did it break down?
The reality is that coming out of slavery, we never had a straight line. if you look at all the public policies that this country has developed, they've all been designed to keep us under. From sharecropping to the prison industry, to redlining, to urban renewal, to gentrification. They're all the same reality. And every time that, we as black people make a step ahead, they come up with public policies to push us down. So there's a structural reality in this country that is designed to keep black people in the economic limitations. So understanding that, then our challenge is to undo that. Our challenge is to come up with strategies that counter their strategies, as opposed to operate from fear and feel that we got to co-opt ourselves as the only way that we can deal with surviving. We have all the intelligence we need to create our own economy, to do everything else that we need. The biggest challenge we have is to come together in a unified effort. What has kept us under is that they divide and conquer. They divide us politically, they divide us socially, they divide us even gender-wise. So at some point we have to appreciate, or begin to appreciate, that our strength is our unity. When we make decisions around planning, and then we do it in a unified way, that operates from our base of strength. And that's a cultural shift. We have to move away from, again, the 150 years of indoctrination of us feeling that we can't do for self. And once we appreciate that we have everything we need and the opportunity to do it, and this is why planning is so important. Because, without planning, you have no direction. They say a people without a vision will perish. Planning gives you a vision. It allows everybody to come together with a common direction. Right now, what you see in places like Ward 8 and Ward 7 is just people who are scattered. Everybody has their own individual agenda. And that way, it makes it easier for anybody to come in, particularly developers, come in the community and take over, because we don't have a common agenda. Right. So our first effort is, how do we come together and develop a strategy that we all can own and we all can take ownership of, and make sure that no one can come in the community and counter that. And so this is the opportunity we have in Ward 8, and I would offer, particularly with the conversation we're having now, the platform that we're creating, anybody who has a positive desire to help the community will have a way to enter in and connect with the community in a way that the community can participate collectively, from the poorest resident on up. It can't be a group of people, it can't be the elite leadership or the political leadership. It has to be everybody taking ownership of our common vision.
Let's say one thing. Let me chime in and see if I can pick up. We must have, I just want to make sure an identifiable procedure or structure in which we can solve our problems.
Due process.
We need due process, we need a government. Sure. We have to have, when the question is asked, from the people, where can I get my problem solved in this city? Which is anywhere, around the world, but specifically in this city as black or African people. Where can I go to get my problem solved? Where are my representatives? Where are my leadership meetings? If I'm a so-called American citizen, I know that my Congress, if I'm an American citizen, my Congress is down here at the Rayburn building. It's at the Longworth building. And that Congress is going to meet up all the way up until August 1st, and it's going to go out of session, it's going to come back in session. And the white man's Congress, even though we have representatives, it's the white man's Congress. The white man's Congress runs every day. And inside of the white man's Congress is where his legislators trade ideas, trade proposals, and they put legislation across the floor, and they vote on it and approve it and give it a budget and give